Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Sarr. We have a breaking NBA rumor from Jake Fisher of Yahoo Sports that suggests that Alex Sarr does not want to play for the Atlanta Hawks. And this is something that we actually kind of said, why hasn't he been for a workout? Why is it? And we kind of suggested, it kind of makes sense. Like, why hasn't he been in there for a workout? Because the Hawks, there's absolutely zero reason for them not to do their due diligence, right? Like, they should be doing everything on every prospect, every trade. We talked about it, leave no stone unturned, but it seems like Alex Sarr doesn't want to play for the Hawks. Now, Fisher talked about wanting to play the 4 instead of the 5. In this era, I don't understand why that's a thing.
I think, Fisher did say, Sarr, it's known now that the Hawks can't even get him in for a workout. That is known. So that's kind of been reported. What the rumor is that Sarr's camp doesn't want him in Atlanta. Now, for a few reasons, these are murmurs. Fisher didn't even really say it. These are murmurs that, Jalen Johnson is entrenched in the 4 in Atlanta, which I don't even think is solidified. I mean, Jalen Johnson is so versatile. He could play a 2 through the 4, honestly, in my opinion, without DeJounte Murray or with Trae Young or DeJounte Murray. I also don't get it. I mean, Alex Sarr, you are a phenom. You are, the number 1 overall pick. You could certainly carve out a role if you're as talented as everyone says you are, and surely as much as you believe you are, or at least your camp believes you are. So I'm not quite sure. Maybe it's even deeper than the actual logistics of getting him on the court. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it was an ownership and organizational thing where he didn't want to go to the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, but see, that doesn't make sense because you got Washington Wizards. They're even worse than the Atlanta
Well, they
Hawks
have a new regime. I'm blanking on the GM's name, and he's highly regarded in that sense with the help of Travis Schlenk, former Hawks guy. And a lot of people like to point to the representation of Alex Sarr, who also represents Luka Doncic, who also represents Al Horford, and they're kind of trying to connect those dots. That does feel a little bit like a conspiracy to me.
That is like unbelievable conspiracy.
Yes, it is.
That doesn't even make any sense.
Yes,
why Al Horford has nothing. He loves the city of Atlanta. Yes, obviously he went to Boston, and we kind of gave him like a screw you. But I mean, he has no ill will to the city of Atlanta. Doncic, why would Luka Doncic have ill will to the city of Atlanta?
Either way, yeah, the Luka Doncic thing is, Mark Cuban called Tony Ressler and was like, I'll make this trade. We can leave the GMs out of it. And that's, obviously where we're going wrong with it in the first place. With that being said, I subscribe to the notion that, like, if you don't want me, I don't want you. I'm not going to make, someone be somewhere they don't want to be. That goes for all facets of life, not just, business and our sports teams. With that being said, if I'm the Hawks and I've graded these guys, you can't get them in for a workout, so you're just kind of doing it based on film. If Alex Sarr is your highest graded prospect, and it's not even particularly close, which would be Reza Shea and Klingon, assumingly, I don't care. Alex Sarr, you're coming to the Atlanta Hawks. Like, you could do and say whatever you want, but if I feel you're the highest graded guy in this draft, it's not even a question. I'm drafting you.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I've always felt about a lot of these situations where you see guys hold out. Now, there's situations where it might work and it does, make contract negotiations. And those situations, right, in the NFL that we see, and honestly, the contract situations in the NFL are so screwed up that I understand, and the injuries and all that. So it's a lot different. But in a situation like this, I'm sorry, Alex Sarr, you really don't have any power.
Yeah.
You have absolutely no power. If we want to take you, you're going to take you. And what are you going to do? Sit out? Okay, fine. That year's not going to count against your contract. You're never going to play in the NBA. You're never going to get paid. So at the end of the day, as much as they can push this narrative that they don't want him in Atlanta, which it very clearly seems like they're doing.
I mean, it's quite we're 5 days away from the NBA draft, and we haven't even worked him out.
Yeah. I agree. But at the end of the day, and I remember one of the first times when I used to cover the Hawks, in person, covering Travis Schlenk. And listen, I'm not calling Landry Fields Travis Schlenk, but Travis Schlenk talked about how the scouting process on these guys starts 5-6 years ago. They are starting freshmen in high school. That's when they start scouting these guys that are, rumors of being in the NBA draft or potentially being high guys. So these guys, Landry Fields is obviously green, so he probably wasn't doing it 5-6 years ago. But the scouts that they have around him, these guys have been scouted. Like, you should know everything about Alex Sarr that you need to know without having him in there for if we're really being serious, a rather meaningless workout. Like, what are we doing here? What is he going to be doing shooting on air?
Physical stuff isn't, I mean,
what are we going to be doing shooting on air?
I can see the in-person workout being a kind of a, doesn't really matter, but the conversations
for sure,
where you can kind of racking their brain, kind of push them a little bit mentally, maybe try and push some buttons, just go through an interview process. I think that is infinitely more valuable than the actual workout. So your point, is taken. I think this is a wild situation. The Atlanta Hawks finally, something kind of goes right for the city of Atlanta basketball. We get the number 1 overall pick. It's one of those classes. There's not a Victor Wembanyama. There's not a Zion Williamson. There's not a consensus prospect that everyone expects to go number 1 overall. Alex Sarr is that consensus, has been for a lot of the offseason, has been that consensus number 1 prospect in a class that doesn't have a consensus number 1 prospect. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense. And then he doesn't want to play for the Atlanta Hawks. Like, that just feels like our luck. It feels like I'm just over here punching air as an Atlanta Hawks fan.
But, I mean, like it does definitely feel
like just imagine we draft Donovan Clingan or Zachary Ariza. It doesn't matter. Anybody other than Alex Sarr. Sarr goes to the Wizards and he turns into an absolute superstar.
Well, then Landry Field should be fired and never be a GM again.
Well, yeah, that's quite simple. Like, I mean, I don't even care about that. I'm just talking about us poor fans.
Well, listen, I really don't care that he's not like it does. This really has no like effect on me. And I don't think it should have effect. I do not care what Alex Sarr wants.
Let me pose this because I agree. Alex Sarr and one of the other prospects, Ariza or Clingan, doesn't matter. Alex Sarr is the highest rated prospect, but it's close.
Yeah.
You're still going with Sarr.
I'm going with
even if it's close.
Guy. Yeah, I'm going with
even
the best
if it's
guy.
close.
Listen, you get him in the building. If you have any belief in who you are as a team and as a culture and your coaching and stuff, you get him in the building and do it. If you don't where this matters, and the Hawks really haven't shown that they have a culture, but you believe in Quinn Snyder, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you believe in like the player, the personnel and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Get him in the building and let him see how he reacts. He doesn't know anything about the Atlanta Hawks really. Now he can say, "Oh, Jalen Johnson's going to be the 4." What are we talking about 4s and 5s in this kind of game? Today's game, like you could bring the ball up, Alex Sarr, if you show that capability. Trust me, nobody's going to stop you. Like
that is the point. If you're good enough, it'll happen for you.
And if the Hawks have a good enough culture and stability and stuff like that, get him in the building. This is going to be like, we're not even going to remember this in a couple of days if he comes in there. So I get it. Like, and I don't think it's a great look on Sarr personally. And I don't think it's a
terrible look for both parties.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good look for anybody. But at the end of the day, like, as I've said, you have scouted this guy. Like, you should know Alex Sarr, the prospect, like the back of your hand. You should know if you want to take this guy number 1 overall. And you should have known this probably 2 weeks ago. Once you got the number 1 overall pick, you probably should have already known who the top prospect on your board was in the draft. You shouldn't have to do that much homework. Now, I know they said they did, but you really shouldn't. That should be just like the due diligence part.
That should mainly just be getting people in person so you can look them in the eye, and also fielding trade calls and kind of going down different avenues if you were to do something like trade down or take this prospect and what that would mean for free agency and what that would mean for trades and everything like that. I totally agree.
Yeah. And to me, I'm not sold on the idea. Like, I just feel like you got to take, I mean, we talk about it with the Falcons all the time, like take the best player available. And in the NBA draft, I think it's even greater. It's even greater because
especially in today's NBA,
there will be 20 guys in the first round, right, that turn out well, maybe not that much. Just 15. There might be 4 guys in this year's NBA draft class that turn out to be starters, like career-long starters. So, like, if you're going to pass up on a guy that you can believe is going to be a career-long starter, potential all-star, just because, maybe he's a little immature and doesn't want to step in the building or he's getting some bad information.
What's crazy is that's what it feels like. That's not what it feels like in terms of what Fisher has said and some of these other guys is it's his camp. And obviously,
that's what I'm saying.
They work for him. Could be bad information.
You get bad information. He's a young kid. I mean, he's 19 years old. Like, what does he know about the Atlanta Hawks or as an organization? And
what he's been told.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, he's been playing in France. He spent most of his time in France. I mean, it's just like, yes, like he had overtime elite here in Atlanta, but I don't know. To me, it just, I'm taking the best player available, and I think that's hopefully what the Hawks do on draft night on Thursday.